G'day gorgeous, you're listening to episode 6 of the G'day Gorgeous podcast that empowers women for life. Today's topic, how to tame the toxic self-talk beast. This empowering podcast is created by me, Amanda Jane Clarkson, best-selling author and author of my newly released book, From Frustrated to Fabulous, an inspirational guide for women who dare to live their dreams. And I'll share more on how you can get this book at the end of the podcast. I'm also an international inspirational speaker, entrepreneur, and wealth and lifestyle coach for women globally. And if you're a woman who craves more from life, you want more certainty, more clarity, and more confidence to create and live your dream life by design, not by default, nor desperation, then this is the podcast that will absolutely help you go from feeling frustrated in any area of your life to feeling fabulous, successful, and more prosperous in these 7 areas: your love, health, relationships, money, vocation, happiness, and personal growth. And I can promise you that this podcast is going to be raw, real, and very relatable, as it's based on real life experiences, life lessons, and results. And I'm talking about the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So be sure to have your journal ready, because you're going to be taking notes, plenty of aha learnings and life lessons, and a nice cup of tea, because I always have a cup of tea with me, water. We'll be here for the next 30 minutes together. So all I'm asking you, gorgeous, is to have an open mind, an open heart, and come with me on this grand adventure. Come with me on this journey of self-discovery, because what I can share with you today, what I'm about to share with you, I am sure you will relate in so many ways. And as a woman speaking with another woman, I believe I've probably walked in your shoes thousands and thousands of miles, especially talking about today's topic on how to tame the toxic self-talk beast. Now, going on with the story, if you've been following me in the last few podcasts, you'll probably heard a little bit about my background, a little bit about my story of how I grew up in a place called Tasmania, town called Launceston. Tasmania is a small island south of Australia, where I grew up in an everyday family, one of 5 children, and I had quite bad self-talk, toxic self-talk. Now, I want you to put yourself not in my shoes, but come with me on this journey and ask yourself the question, what was my childhood like? Did I have the same thing going on? Because I believe that pretty much most women have it going on. In fact, I believe all of us do, and men as well. Men have their own healthy dose. However, I can only speak from a woman's point of view and what I went through, and I know how debilitating my self-toxic talk got, and it turned into what I call a real beast within me. It was raging, it was angry, it was resentful, it was pissed off at the world. It was pissed off with parents. It was pissed off with the school she went to. She was pissed off at how life had turned out for her. Now, once I had made a personal commitment to empowering my life instead of trying to live with conformity, trying to fit in with everybody else, desperately wanting to be liked and loved for who I was, I began to realize that for things to change, first I must change. However, it wasn't always like this. And I want you to come on this journey with me. I want you to take yourself back to your childhood or your earlier days or the past, maybe even the present. Ask yourself, what is your self-talk like? Do you have a beast within you? I remember my self-toxic talk was debilitating. It was really holding me back from living my best life. It was holding me back from being all that I could be. However, I didn't even realize it. My beast that was inside of me from when I was a young kid growing up, trying to find my way in life. My beast was angry. I was an angry kid. I was resentful. I was agitated. I was peeved off with other people, my parents. I was blaming my teachers, the school I went to, everything that I saw on TV, because I couldn't work out why I wasn't living the life that I'd always dreamed of. I hadn't had the guidance, I hadn't had the tools, I didn't have the knowledge and the understanding. And so even though I had moved away from Tasmania, I was now living in Queensland in Australia, on the Gold Coast with my family, had moved up as well. And I had started to go from job to job to job. In fact, 33 different jobs is what I had growing up. To the age of 29 years of age, I'd had 33 jobs. And throughout those jobs, I had learned so much. I was always knowing what I didn't want in my life, but not knowing how to achieve all that I did want in my life. And that is the question that I would ask you. Have you had that experience or those feelings of knowing what you do want, but not knowing how to achieve it, not knowing where to start, not knowing where to begin? And through discovery of personal empowerment or self-empowerment, I realized that I needed to have a really good look at myself. Think about how I was talking to myself. And I have to admit, girlfriend, that my toxic talk, my self-talk was pretty damn ugly. I would look in the mirror and I would just start on myself. I would not feel pretty enough. I would not feel intelligent. I would pick myself to pieces. Body wasn't the right image. The body wasn't the right shape. It wasn't the right look. You know, my boobs weren't big enough. My bum wasn't this right shape or wasn't that shape. Like, honestly, I would pick myself to pieces. Can you relate to that in any way? Do you still do it now? Even today, I still do it. However, back then, it was really in a bad space. And so I realized that if I wanted to change my future, this is what I started to discover. If I wanted to change my future, I really needed to get a handle on that beast. And I have to admit, it was a hard pill to swallow when I was taught through my many mentors that if you want to change, you've got to look at yourself. You've got to look in the mirror and ask yourself a few questions. If you want a different future, can you go on doing the same thing day in, day out, expecting a different result? Can you continue talking to yourself the same way, expecting a different result? And so I started to take notice of the things that I would say to myself. And I've got to admit, I would talk to myself in ways that I would never speak to a friend. I would never speak to a child. Have you ever done anything like that? Lost your car keys and beat up on yourself, called yourself an idiot, called yourself stupid, sworn at yourself. That was the story of my life. And it probably started in my childhood, not feeling good enough, not feeling confident. And in a previous podcast, I talked about being the wallflower at school, how I was never picked on a Friday at the school dance. The boys down at the South School would come up to our private school. I went to a private Catholic girls' school. And we'd have to line up against the wall. And the boys would pick the girls to dance. And almost without fail, every week, I would not get asked to dance. And so you can only imagine how I would feel. I would feel so small, less than dirt. Have you had any experiences like this? I would feel less than dirt. I would feel really ugly. I had zero confidence, no self-belief. And because I had that in my early childhood days, I carried those same beliefs into my teenage years. And then growing up, I talk about in my book how as a kid, I wanted to be free. I wanted to be a millionaire. but I didn't even know what a millionaire was. I'd never met a millionaire for a start, and my parents certainly didn't teach me anything about being a millionaire. And yet I had this language going on in my own mind, because for me, I somehow linked being a millionaire to freedom. That's what I truly wanted to do as a kid. Find freedom, live life on my own terms, run away from my problems, run away from my past, get away from the people who I've believed made me feel small. But what I realized as years went on, that I was the only one that could control how I felt about that, how I felt about my past, how I felt about myself. Does any of this make sense for you? Thinking back to your childhood, did you have any of those same experiences going to school? Can you remember the day where you felt small or less than dirt, or didn't get asked out, or got left behind in a group of friends, or wasn't included in something? And you started to beat up on yourself, thinking that you weren't good enough, weren't smart enough, weren't pretty enough or tall enough, or just wasn't the right fit. And this can really have an effect on us. Well, it certainly had an effect on me. And so over the years, even up until my 30s, where I had my epiphany that I spoke about in the last couple of podcasts, where I realized that for things to change, first I must change, that I had to begin taming the beast. That beast that was wild within inside of me, always looking on the outside. And I believe that wall was just what I'll call my back covers. That was my protection from the hurt that I felt as a child. So the things that really helped me tame that beast that was within me, that self-toxic talk that was really helping me go nowhere in life. I was beginning to realize that unless I changed the way I felt about myself, how could I expect others to look at me? How could I expect others to listen to me? How could I expect others to see leadership within me? They couldn't. And so the work had to begin with me. And so it doesn't matter what area of life, whether we're looking for love, great relationships, more money, a better vocation, which is the job, career, or business, more happiness, more personal growth. And so what I want to share with you now is a couple of empowering ways and ideas that I was gradually able to tame that beast within me that I call the self-toxic talk. Because wouldn't you agree that if we don't learn to tame the beast within, how can we create a life of more joy, a life of more abundance, a life of more fulfillment? It starts with the person in the mirror, and that's us, girlfriend. So here's a couple of things that I did that if you want to get your journal and write them down, this may help you as well, because I always say it doesn't matter where you are, where you've been, all that matters is where you're going. And so where you are today is absolutely perfect. And I can say to you from my heart to yours that this for me has been a journey of transformation, a journey of self-discovery, and a journey of patience. What I've realized is to create the life that I've wanted, it didn't happen overnight, but it started with one small step at a time. And I believe becoming empowered and learning to tame that toxic talk that we all have going on to the best of your ability is a major step in moving forward to living a life of more happiness, peace, and harmony. And so here's what I did. I wanted to learn to appreciate myself. And it wasn't easy, because right up until that, I didn't appreciate myself. So I got a journal and I made a commitment to myself that I would write out 200 things that I loved about myself. Now, putting yourself in my shoes, or maybe you're feeling this as well, if I suggested to you, could you write out 200 things that you love about yourself? How would you feel about that? Would you be going, oh my goodness, I can't even think of 5? Or would you go, I can easily think of 200 and write them out instantly? Well, I don't know how you feel, but I remember when I committed to doing this exercise, it was one of the hardest things I have ever done because I didn't like myself. I certainly didn't love myself, and all I could do was find fault when I looked in the mirror. And so I pushed myself. I made a commitment that I wouldn't stop until I got 200, and I gave myself 7 days to write them out. And so to make it easy, I looked at the 7 different areas of my life. And so I could find some things that I loved about myself in each of the areas. So if you want to do this exercise, it's such an empowering exercise. You can get your journal and you can write out the 7 areas, which are love, health, relationships, your money, your vocation, happiness, and personal growth. And ask yourself, what are the things that I love about me in each of these 7 areas? And like me, you may find this really difficult. You may find this really easy. But when I actually did the exercise, I pushed myself. I really began to see myself in a different light. I really began to appreciate who I was as a human being. I believed that I had something to offer. I could see more self-worth. I could feel myself feeling lighter, more uplifted, more energetic, more vibrant. And so I pushed myself through. And it was such an empowering exercise to go through. And I really hope that you do this exercise because for me, it really started to change the way I spoke to myself. And I was able to catch myself more easily when that beast would start to come up from within me. I was able to tame it and say, hey, that's a little bit harsh there, Amanda. Think of some kinder words. Think of words that are more empowering, words that are more uplifting to speak to yourself about. You know, if you don't learn to love yourself, how can you expect the world to see more in you than you see within yourself? And that was the lesson for me. They were the words that I'd keep telling myself. Amanda, if you want to go out there and make a difference, if you want to go out there, inspire, empower, and impact other women, other people, and help them be the best that they can be, it's got to start with you. How do you speak to yourself? And so I would start to fill my mind with more empowering words, empowering thoughts. And over time, gorgeous, what happened is that the disempowering thoughts that were so habitual from childhood, so ingrained in my psyche, slowly but surely, just like a beautiful garden, I began to weed those disempowering thoughts and words out. Look, I'm human like all of us, and sometimes they come back, but these times I catch myself. More and more I catch myself, and I haven't got such a garden full of weeds. I've got more what I like to call flowers. And that's my big aha lesson for you today. And I hope you're writing this down in your journal, and I hope you're resonating. I hope you're feeling the rawness of the truth that I'm speaking. And all I have is my journey, my experience, and my results to share with you. But do know that if I can do it, so can you. If I can make the change, so can you. If I can find more love for myself and who I am as a human being and as a woman, so can you. And yes, it was hard at the beginning, but it got easier and easier and easier. And so what I'd do, I'd stand in the mirror and I'd ask myself, what are all the positive aspects of myself and my life? And I would just say, wow, I have eyes that can see. I have legs that can run fast. I have ears that can hear perfectly. I have hair that grows and I can color it and do all different things with it. There was so much to be grateful for. I'm grateful that I've got life. I'm grateful that I wake up in a warm bed every day. I'm grateful that I have water to drink, fresh, clean water. There are so many things to be grateful. And so what happens is, over time, from my experience, that the more you keep looking in the mirror and finding things to love and appreciate, because what you appreciate accumulates, the more empowered and the more strong I began to feel on the inside, which started to radiate on the outside. And people would say to me, Amanda, what are you doing different? You look different. You're acting different. And all that had happened was my self-talk was becoming more empowered instead of disempowered. I was taming that beast. Slowly but surely, day by day, the more I worked on me, the more my life started to transform. My life started to change in small but wonderful ways, and I believe it can be the same for you as well. And so maybe even write down in your journal, as I'm sharing this story with you, as I'm sharing these words of wisdom based on my experience and my results, how does it make you feel? As a woman, do you feel within you that you could do this exercise and start to tame that beast that you probably have going on with inside of you as well? I mean, we all have it. This is not about making anybody wrong or anybody right. It just is. It's been my experience, and all I can do is share it with you and hopefully inspire you to take some different actions, inspire you to decide and commit to the beginning of a new chapter of your life, transforming your life so that you can live your life by design, not default, and certainly not by desperation. And so the next thing I would do is write down in my journal, if I'd run out of things to say about myself, I would think about all the compliments that I used to get from other people or get from other people that I once pushed away because I didn't feel worthy of receiving them. And I would write things down that other people would say about me that I couldn't see within me. And I started to come up with different words like Amanda's friendly, Amanda's positive, she's enthusiastic about life, she's open to having a go, she's open to learning, she's honest, she's trustworthy, she's efficient in her work, she's funny sometimes, she's daring, nurturing, understanding. And so, girlfriend, I believe you're these traits as well. I believe you have every one of these traits within you as well. But sometimes we are so hard on ourselves, we can't even see these things within us. And so these 200 things that you love about yourself that I hope you write down in your journal, if you run out of things to say, write down what others see in you that perhaps you weren't accepting because you didn't feel worthy. And so over time, what happens is you really start to blossom. You start to feel a little bit more confident about yourself. You start to have a little bit more clarity about who you are and where you want to go in life. And you start to believe what used to feel like the impossible can become possible for you. And I'm going to be talking more about turning the impossible to possible in future podcasts. However, I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I do want to leave you with this message. Unless you are growing, you are dying. Self-love, this is what this whole podcast is about today. Self-love is one of my most empowering live now life success principles that I live by and that I teach. And self-love is critical if you want to realize all of your amazing and worthwhile dreams that I know you have inside of you, and I know and believe you are worthy of living. And we'll delve more into all of these different hot topics in up and coming podcasts. So I truly hope you'll stick with me. And for this podcast, I want to say thank you for listening in. And if you've loved this episode and you've found value, you've taken some notes and you're feeling a little bit more inspired, and you know of somebody else who would love to go from feeling frustrated in her life to feeling fabulous, successful, and even more prosperous in all or any of the 7 areas, including love, health, relationships, money, vocation, happiness, and personal growth, then please let them know to subscribe to the G'day Gorgeous podcast that empowers women for life. You know that it would mean the world to me if you could help me create what I call the butterfly effect by sharing this important, impactful message to as many listeners as we can together. You know, this is my life's work and my mission to reach, teach, inspire, empower, and impact as many women globally as we can collectively and show them that they can become anyone they want to be and live the life that they dream of. So please, if you've liked what you've heard today and you found value in what I've shared with you, I would be super grateful if you take just 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review and share this message with your girlfriends. And to find out more about who I am and what I do, please visit me at my website, www.gdaygorgeous.com. And thanks again for joining me on the G'day Gorgeous podcast that empowers women for life. And until next time, gorgeous, be bold, be courageous, and be fabulous. Bye for now.